right, hey, good morning, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Thursday, September 29th, 2022, and this is your morning update on now Tropical Storm Ian. Ian has been moving across the Florida Peninsula overnight and is now emerging from Cape Canaveral here this morning, a little bit ahead of schedule by a couple hours. Last night, a lot of heavy rainfall and high winds affected the central Florida Peninsula in a swath from where Ian made landfall to about the Flagler Volusia County line here this morning, where heavy rainfall is still falling. And Ian's wrath is kind of trying to push into northeast Florida. Is expected to move up into the Carolinas on Friday. So we're going to talk about Northeast Florida real quick, and then we're going to hit on the follow-on of Ian as it moves into the Southeast U.S. for the rest of your weekend. So this is the current radar out of Jacksonville, Florida this morning, showing the heaviest rainfall moving into parts of Daytona, Palm Coast, and the Flagler, Volusia sort of counties. And this rainfall is prolific. The National Weather Service in Melbourne has actually issued a flash flood emergency valid at 9 o'clock this morning. And again, these flash flood emergencies are beyond flash flood warnings. They are extremely dire, life-threatening situations where copious amounts of flooding are ongoing. 10 to 14 inches of rain have fallen already in this area since last night, and another 3 to 5 inches are possible. There's a couple more hours where Ian's wrath is going to push into this area before the center moves far enough away, and this is just a very, very bad situation this morning for Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, and points around. So definitely please be careful down there this morning. And we can see the radar presentation otherwise is kind of a sharp cutoff. What wound up happening is basically the I-95 corridors actually also became the cutoff for the heaviest rainfall. You can see the brighter returns on the radar are moving into the coastlines of St. John's and Jacksonville Beach and Flagler Beach and whatnot. But the heaviest rain is really staying there. You can see as soon as these rainfall bands get across 95, unless you're way down here, you're seeing a lot lighter rainfall across Putnam County, Clay County, Western Duval, and Nassau counties just aren't seeing a whole lot. And you go out towards like Baker County and down the 301 corridor through Gainesville. I mean, there's almost nothing falling out here this morning. It's very light. This is the product of that dry air that we've been talking about coming in to kind of zap some of the strength out of Ian, and it's kind of mixed in and it's creating pretty finite lines. One here again around 301 where you're west of that, you're getting almost nothing. And if you're between 301 and 95, you're getting some steady light rain, but definitely not heavy, not like we were expecting. And if you're east of 95, I mean, you're still getting a pretty good smacking of rainfall here. And that's kind of been the pattern set up throughout the day. Now, this is pretty much going to be the story as Ian's going to move off and then begin to recurve past our area. This is kind of going to be the story. And as Ian gets north of our area, drier air will rush in pretty quick and cut this off. So we have that flash flood emergency again ongoing. The latest for the wind gust forecasts, our wind gust totals have been about what we expected for the most part. Mayport NAS Jax has been taking the cake this morning. 59 mile per hour wind gusts this morning, but several others in the 50s and 40s have been reported. St. Augustine at 52, Fernandina Beach 43, and then some of the other ones further out, Lake City only getting into the mid 30s this morning, and some folks not even getting that high up. But generally has been about expected. And this is about what we can expect over the rest of the day. I don't see these wind gusts getting substantially worse, but they will be gusting on and off like this throughout the afternoon hours, and they really won't improve so much until tomorrow. But those are kind of the latest on the wind gust forecast and whatnot. We can kind of see how Ian's going to look as it passes by our area. Again, that really heavy rainfall into parts of Flagler and Volusia is going to continue this morning until Ian moves away in a couple of hours. This is 20Z, so about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon is when that probably is really going to start to lighten up, and that's when the rainfall will lighten up, pretty much east of I-95, or besides east of I-95. That's when the rainfall really will taper off for us. And then going to the evening hours, you can see Ian's rain pulls away and quickly drier air surges in by early tomorrow morning to cut off any additional rainfall with Ian, and that will be kind of that. And as you can see, the heavy bands begin to move up into the Carolinas from there. Rainfall total still to come for us. Generally 2 to 4 inches is a good call. And again, this is really cutting off based on where you live. Not much more rainfall out west, and then about 2 to 4 inches for a lot of the central inland counties and the coastal counties. Still can expect a good bit of rainfall. 3 to 5 inches still. Some of that's already fallen this morning from when this map was made, so even a little bit less than what you see on your screen. But of course, in a Flagler and Volusia, where that exceptional rainfall is still ongoing, 5 to 10 more inches potentially could be falling before that moves out. Wind gust forecast about on track. Generally tropical storm force throughout the rest of the day. I think the hurricane force wind gusts, except like the immediate beaches could still see those 70s, but generally speaking, tropical storm force wind gusts will be the name of the game. And I would say as Ian moves off, these are going to switch back out of the west out of the north and the west, so there's going to be a reversal in the wind direction tonight, and that could still bring down some trees and cause some issues. So please respect that as it moves on. But that's kind of the latest on Northeast Florida. Again, about as expected, lighter rain than we thought, and the wind gusts are about on track. But the rain's lighter than we thought for the most part, with the exception, of course, of Flagler and Volusia counties. So overall, good news. But please stay safe, stay where you're at today, and then tomorrow we can probably start milling back to wherever you want to go. Just kind of limit travel today. It's still going to be kind of rough out there. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ian in the broad brush and the overall look on the satellite presentation. We can still see Ian is definitely caught up in this upper trough as a lot of these clouds are racing in a belt away from the storm, and you can see the strong upper level winds associated with the jet stream moving high clouds away from the center of the storm. And this has been the kind of look of Ian since the landfall point. Those westerly winds are starting to impact the system, and that drier air rotating on the backside. You can see a lot of clearing of the clouds across South Florida. This has definitely cut off rainfall totals. There's a lot of really dry fall air that is moving in from the southeast and wrapping up in and around Ian. But that trough is also helping to ventilate the storm aloft, and it's causing it to, maybe stay a bit stronger than it was. At least it's going to offset some of those impacts. So we go to the National Weather Services, or the National Hurricane Center, rather, 8 a.m. advisory. And again, maximum sea wind 65 miles an hour. That movement to the northeast at 8 is going to pop off Cape Canaveral in the next hour or two, and then be over water for probably the better part of 30 hours. Now, this is not enough time for Ian to, rapidly strengthen into another major hurricane or something, but we do anticipate Ian's going to have some time over water, and we think that as this moves into South Carolina on 2 o'clock or so on Friday, that some strengthening could occur, and that Ian could be very close to hurricane intensity once again before it makes landfall. You'll have the upper level outflow being favorable, and you'll have the warm waters beneath Ian in the Gulf Stream. That'll be offset by that drier air coming in and the westerly wind shear. So we think that overall this is going to kind of be a push, and it's not going to get much stronger, but I think the needle is leaning slightly towards a little bit of strengthening before landfall. And hurricane watches are in up for much of the South Carolina and Georgia coastlines until Ian gets ashore, and those likely will stay up or could become hurricane warnings if he's showing any signs of strengthening. So right now, if I was in South Carolina, I would be preparing for a Category 1 hurricane just to be safe, but definitely could at least be a strong tropical storm as it approaches. The Hurricane Center has it at 70 miles an hour as it makes landfall, but that could easily be 75 in that Category 1 threshold. Could be either way. Our computer models support this pretty well. Track confidence is high. The landfall point will be somewhere in central South Carolina from like Beaufort to Charleston sort of region, and the intensity models are kind of split between Category 1 and high-end tropical storm, but that is to be expected, and again, could be either or, could be anywhere in that 65 to 80 mile an hour range of maximum sustained winds. But Ian's got a big wind field, and a lot of rain, a lot of wind damage and whatnot is coming. The H-curve kind of shows this pretty well. Moves offshore is about 983 millibar central pressure, and then deepens the storm up until landfall. And again, look at that wind field. You have strong winds all the way down to the parts of the Georgia coastline, and then all the way up to the border of North Carolina. A large wind field. Storms that have been previous large hurricanes have much larger wind fields in classic tropical storms. So even if Ian comes in as a quote tropical storm, it's going to feel worse than a lot of sloppy, crappy 50-mile-an-hour tropical storms that spin up right before landfall. It's not going to be the same. This is a big storm. It's going to have big impacts. So please, respect that as such, and don't think it's just another junky tropical storm that formed on the edge of a cold front and just kind of wandered in. The storm is still pretty deep and pretty strong, even if the wind speeds aren't what they were in Southwest Florida. GFS shows this too, comes off, deepens the storm, makes landfall about 980 millibars, and again, that big wind field associated with it on the surface. That wind shear looks like it's going to pick up a little bit, but generally be kind of light enough for some strengthening. That's why we're thinking this might get back to hurricane intensity, but you can still see that dry air coming in to affect the storm as well. It moves offshore, and then that finger of dry air continues to come up under Ian, but this pushes all that moisture out ahead of it. Look at this moisture tongue on the GFS model coming in here over on Tropical Tidbits. We're looking at the relative humidity in the mid levels, and this moisture field starts surging in on Friday, or really tomorrow, not tonight, into Friday morning. But by midday Friday, that moisture, tropical moisture from Ian's really surged in. Just as the storm's making landfall, all the heavy rainfall associated with Ian's already been on shore for a while now. So this is going to be kind of a storm lopsided to the opposite of where they normally would be. Normally, storms are strongest on the right front side. Ian will be strongest on his north and kind of west side, if you will. So the rainfall totals to come for the southeast U.S., South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia all can expect 3 to 6 inches of rain, and some pockets will be locally up to 10 inches of rain, as a lot of rainfall associated with Ian is coming. You have a strong high pressure on the surface across the Great Lakes, this kind of cool fall high pressure. And it's cool air, and so you've got warm air from the tropics overrunning this really cold air that creates a tighter pressure gradient for stronger winds, and it creates an overrunning rainfall situation where a lot of steady, heavy rainfall is going to fall. And I would not be surprised these totals came up even more than this, but even if they don't, this is a lot of rainfall and will cause local flooding problems for sure. European model showing the potential wind gust forecast, and again, lots of tropical storm force winds coming even into the parts of the Outer Banks and whatnot. I mean, this is a widespread area of winds. I mean, look, parts of eastern and southeast Georgia getting in the 40s and 50s, 50s, 60s for North Carolina, and then again, those hurricane force winds are very possible at the coastline if Ian's a Category 1, and then 50s or so across a lot of North Carolina. So a wide berth of tropical storm force winds are expected as Ian comes in, can knock out power, knock down trees, etc., etc. Storm surge still 4 to 6 feet, and even in southeast Georgia, where maybe the heaviest rainfall is expected, you can still see that 4 to 6 foot of water rise and that strong coastal fetch moving in, similar to what Northeast Florida got, and then 2 to 4 feet of water rise all the way up to the border of North Carolina. Um, that's kind of it for Ian as far as the latest update goes. I just wanted to mention we do have other storms active. Tropical Depression 11 formed. Does not appear it's going to be named, and it will be a very short-lived storm. So other than that, the Atlantic looks pretty quiet, and we'll be tracking some stuff into October, but it looks like we're going to get a little bit of a break after Ian. And over in the eastern Pacific, we do have Tropical Storm Orlean forecast to become a hurricane and then make landfall somewhere south of the Baja Peninsula into Mexico. Might have some follow-on precipitation issues for the Four Corners. We'll see how that plays out. Sometimes these systems do that. Sometimes they just dissipate completely, but could be a moisture surge, so we'll keep an eye on that one. And the Joint Typhoon Warning Center monitors 2 typhoons today. One is quickly about to recurve into the cold North Pacific, and the other one is forecast to move offshore of Japan, but stay away from Japan overall. A couple days ago, Typhoon Noru hit the coast of Vietnam as one of the strongest storms they have on their records. I don't know how strong it was. I was tracking Ian, didn't really pay attention to it, but I know that did make landfall. And it's been a pretty active time in the Western Pacific after what was also a quiet season for them. So that's all I got for you guys this morning on your latest update. We will be back here tonight if I've got power. If not, then I'll just be posting on the page. So until then, as always, thanks for watching and have a good one.